What's up, everybody? John Arapola here with My MMA News, and today's guest will be fighting Alan Baudot at UFC Vegas 48 on February 19th. Pleased to be joined by Parker Porter here today. Parker, thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, no problem at all. I know that you're in camp right now. You're starting to wrap things up here as fight night's just a few days away now. How did camp go as you now start to wrap things up?
Camp's been really good. Everything's kind of, like you said, starting to wrap up a little bit. The intensity's starting to come down a little bit, a little less sparring and a little more just focus on staying loose and keeping that technique sharp and keeping the conditioning up.
So anyone that's watched you fight over the years, now we know you're a real big guy. You got like tree trunks for legs there, and you like to lift weights. I've seen the video on your Instagram of you squatting a lot of weight, doing some deadlifts, things like that. When you're in camp like you are right now and you have a fight coming up, are you lifting still while you go through camp, or do you kind of let that kind of die down a little bit as you go through the final few weeks of camp?
I'm still lifting. I lift all the way up until I leave, and then only the week of being out in Vegas is the only week I'm not really lifting too much.
So I want to get your thoughts then on, there's like this, it's an old school type of thing, and you more see it in boxing, and I don't know if you follow like Tyson Fury a lot. Like Tyson Fury always gives Anthony Joshua a lot of crap, saying that wants to be a bodybuilder. He's always lifting weights, and that's not good for a fighter. I know that's like an old school type of mentality. I just want to get your thoughts when you hear somebody like that make a comment like that you shouldn't be lifting weights.
I think it's different for boxing. You definitely want to be lifting a certain amount of weights because obviously you need to get your strength up, and one of the best ways to get your strength up is with resistance training. But as far as like the grappling portion of things in mixed martial arts, I think that requires a lot more strength. I mean, you don't usually hear anybody come back to the corner in between rounds and be like, oh my God, this guy's cardio is so much better than mine. They're usually saying things like, holy crap, this dude's really strong, stuff like that. And that, I think, plays a little bit more of a factor in mixed martial arts than it does in pure boxing.
And when I competed in track and field when I was in college, I was a bigger guy back then. I did the shot put, and we used to obviously lift real heavy during the year. And then it would come time like we get to like the indoor-outdoor championship season. That's when we would kind of we'd still lift weights not that week, but it was very light, reducing a lot of things. Is that kind of how you do it with fighting too? As you get closer to the fight, you kind of don't go as hard, as heavy with the lifts as you kind of get closer to fight night?
No, we actually kind of like taper it up to kind of try to peak the strength output and the power output as we get closer to the fight, so that on fight night we're hitting that absolute peak. Anybody that lifts weights regularly isn't gonna just dramatically lose their strength in like 2 to 3 weeks, especially if they're still staying active, doing things like grappling, boxing, sparring, pad work, stuff like that. But no, we actually kind of ramp things up. We kind of taper down the volume, but the intensity goes up a little bit, and we focus a little more on plyometric type stuff. A lot more explosive movements and a little bit less weight, but more just focus on moving that weight fast.
I got you. I understand there. And I did want to ask you another thing, too, about training camp right now. I did see, I believe it was like a few days ago, you had on Instagram, you got to go in a float tank. Now, I haven't gotten to experience a float tank yet, but every person I've ever talked to has had nothing but good things to say about it. They always highly recommend it. So why don't you, well, first off, for the viewers that might not know what a float tank is, why don't you explain a little bit about what it is, why it's beneficial, and then why it is that you like doing it?
So it was my first time experiencing one. What it is it's a sensory deprivation tank where, the one I went in was a cabin style one. It had probably about a foot and a half of water in it, but the water has like hundreds of pounds of Epsom salt in it. So it's super buoyant, and I don't float in the pool when I go to the beach or when I go in the pool or go to the beach or anything. All these people are like just kind of like kicking back and relaxing. I try to do that and I just sink like a rock. So for me to just be able to lay back in the water and actually float was really cool. But what it is there's the water in the tank, and you just kind of get in there and float, and it's a soundproof room as well as completely dark. And the idea behind it is to really just kind of shut off all the outside stimuli that we have on a day-to-day basis. We're always so overstimulated that we never really genuinely get a chance to fully relax. Even when we're sleeping, a lot of people don't get the best quality sleep. It's a way that you can actually kind of completely shut off your sympathetic nervous system and genuinely relax everything. That's the reason the water is so salty, is so you can be as buoyant as you can and completely relax and not have to have any kind of muscle tension while you're floating. And it almost gives you like a zero gravity kind of feel to it. That's why they call it a float tank, because it literally just feels like you're just in space floating around. And it was really cool experience. And it gave me, I felt, I did a 75-minute session, and the way that I felt afterwards was as if I had just taken the most perfect power nap of my life. I woke up like feeling completely rested, totally rejuvenated, but I was conscious the whole time. So it was definitely an almost trippy experience, also because that 75 minutes only felt like 30 while I was in there.
Yeah, I say everybody says nothing but good things about it, and I've heard that too. That it's so peaceful and relaxing, and it's just so beneficial to the body. I'm gonna eventually try one of these out though, so I'm glad I got the recommendation there from you about it. So
I definitely recommend it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have any kind of stressors in your life, mental stress, anxiety, any kind of high stress work or just life in general. It's a really great way to decompress.
Awesome. Well, now let's get into your opponent here a little bit. Tell us about Alan, what you've kind of seen out of him as you've been preparing for him now for the last few weeks.
I've seen a couple of his fights. I was just saying to somebody that it's interesting because most of his fights are not at heavyweight. He's actually only had most of his fights at heavyweight in the UFC. A lot of his earlier fights were at light heavyweight, and some of them even at middleweight. So with that being said, I think I'll have the advantage there because I am a genuine heavyweight, and all but one of my fights were at heavyweight. But I think, he's stylistically, he's a good, strong kickboxer. I'm expecting him to really come out and kind of push the pace. He seems to have an aggressive style, very much like one of these kind of knockout or get knocked out type of guys. And I'm game for that. I like that too, because it's a fight. I'm not coming to just score points. We're coming to bang out. We're trying to get that fight finished.
So being that you're a real big guy, do you think having that size advantage, that he's a guy that has most of his fights at a lower weight class, do you think having that big size advantage is really going to be a big difference in a fight like this?
I think it's definitely going to be a helpful factor for myself. Everybody's going to I'm sure be wondering if he's going to be quicker because he's used to being a lighter guy, or also I'm kind of wondering if he's not going to be any quicker than what I've already seen, because now he's walking around at a little bit of a bigger weight. So that obviously is going to change his speed aspect of things. But I think because I'm just used to moving myself around and moving other large people around as well, I think I'm going to have the advantage in that.
So a win right on fight night, that's going to put you with a three fights in a row you would have won then, and then puts you, I believe, 5 of your last 6 gives you victories in. Obviously puts you in a great spot, right? Do you think that a win here kind of will get you a ranked guy in your next fight, given all the success you had in your last few outings?
I don't know, man. I'm not one to call people out or anything like that. I'm perfectly content with just fighting whoever's right in front of me and whoever's next. But I'm definitely trying to climb that ladder and get a number put next to my name. My original goal for the last 14, almost 15 years was to just get to the big show, be in the UFC. And now that I'm here, the next goal is to get that number next to my name and make sure that I can earn it and stay in there.
All right, I know we talked now a lot about things inside of the fight game with your training camp and lifting weights, talking about your opponent. I do want to shift gears now to things outside of the cage. So you're a father, a very proud dad. We see the photos that you post online with your 3 boys there. Just what's it been like trying to balance your time as a professional athlete and being the great father that you are?
It's a trip. It actually, it's a little easier now that I'm in the UFC, in the sense that I don't quite have to have so much stuff on my plate as far as like working multiple jobs to take care of things while still finding the time to train and be a good dad. But it's definitely one of those things where, my kids always come first, but obviously now training is my full-time job, as well as, running my gym here. So, somebody asked me if what my hobbies were outside of this, and I had to be completely honest. I'm like, I don't really have many hobbies right now, man. My time is mostly soaked up with training, running my gym and teaching classes, and then whatever little bit of free time I have left, I'm really trying to make sure that I spend with my kids and my wife, and being a good dad and a husband, and making sure I'm there for things like their basketball games or taking them to swim lessons, and just being home to be like, Dad, can you play video games with me? Or, can you read this book with me? And just making sure that I'm present fully in the situation.
So these years now of interviewing different fighters, I've heard a lot of different fighters talk about like maybe stepping up into like a coaching type of role, but I haven't talked to too many people that have actually owned a gym. Like, what are some of the things that brings on? 'Cause I imagine there's obviously a whole other set of struggles and things to worry about when you're the owner of a gym like that.
It's it hasn't been too much of a struggle really, because we're just kind of like, we're a small gym right now. We're just gradually growing. We're not really I'm not running like big, like 30, 40 person classes or anything. And I'm pretty content with that, just growing and growing slowly and making sure that the quality stays in the product that I'm trying to deliver. But it's definitely a different feeling than I just show up, train, and go home at the end of the day. Like there's things I'm thinking about, like, all right, we got to make sure this is clean. We got these supplies, those supplies. What's the next class we're going to add? How many people? Just the general fun part of running a business.
All right, I just got one more fight-related question for you before we close things out here. You mentioned before, right? You had all of your fights at heavyweight except for one. That one was against John Jones. Obviously, we know what he's done. Well, it's looking like we're finally going to see him in the heavyweight division, in your division again. I just want to get your thoughts on the fact that you fought him. He's done so much in the light heavyweight division. Just how do you think it's going to be for him now as he moves up to heavyweight, and how do you think he'd do up there?
I think he could be just as dangerous at heavyweight as he was at light heavyweight. He's been the most dominant fighter really to step foot in the cage ever. And, he's definitely, he's easily one of the most talented people to ever do it. With the extra size, he's always been a strong, powerful, athletic guy to begin with. And then now, we see him, he's walking around more like 250 now, getting used to that added size and working on making sure that he could still move the way that he did at light heavyweight. I think he's going to be a problem for a lot of the guys in our weight class.
All right, one last thing now before you roll out. You want to go ahead, plug your social media, management, sponsors. If you're looking for people, if they want to come down in the gym, join classes and things like that, go ahead, give the gym a plug. So you get the last word, man. The floor is yours.
No sponsors to shout out at the moment, but I definitely want to give a good shout out to my my teammates, my coaches, Kia Galampur, Crew Ed Thornton, my longtime training partner and good friend Dan Frazick, his brother Matt Frazick, all those guys. Everything that I do is made so much easier having them in my corner and having them focus on my goals. They want my goals just as badly as I do, sometimes more than I do. So, I'm very thankful to have the support of them, as well as the support from my wife that I have at home. When I'm out in Vegas for fight week and she's got to be able to run around and take care of all three of the kids with a little bit of help from the rest of the family. It's good knowing that, the home's going to be there when I come back and nothing's going to fall apart or burn down. She's on top of stuff there. And she wants to see me have nothing but success and the best times out there.
All right, Parker, appreciate the time, man. Good luck with everything here as you wrap up camp and go through the fight here. Again, to all the viewers out there, that fight date is February 19th, so make sure you guys check out that event. Also, please, if you like today's interview, make sure you go to the bottom, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and keep going to MyMMANews for all the great work that we have that comes out there, and go to our social media pages and give us a like and a follow on there as well. We'll see you later, everybody.